Hello, and welcome to The Ripple Effect. I am Selena. So, today's topic is brought about through a discussion or conversation, rather, I had with my son, and we were talking about relationships and um, just characteristics of people that are potential partners, I guess, or mates, or what have you, however you want to say it. And in the discussion, talked about this young lady and some of the characteristics that she was looking for, I guess, in a guy or what have you. And it brought me back to when I was in church and I was younger. And there was a discussion. We had I think, a youth pastor come to church, and they were talking about what are the characteristics that you look for in a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And they split us up into two groups, guys on one side, girls on the other, and just different topics that we came up with amongst ourselves. So in the young ladies group, the ladies were talking about what they wanted, and it was all exterior. They were saying like, oh, they want him to have tattoos, and he has to be really fit and be a particular height and make a certain amount of money, drive a certain kind of car, all these different things. Now, mind you, we were in the church, and no one talked about, hey, he need to read his Bible, he need to know the Lord. None of that came up, and if it did, to my recollection, it was like the last thing on the list. And I talk about that because in the discussion with my son, the young lady was talking about things that she wanted, like I'm gonna just say it, like a thug. That's what she was looking for. Someone who was toxic, and someone who ride or die for her, shoot up the club. Like, sis, you're not even wife, okay? And no, okay? And it brings me to like our culture nowadays. Like, people want the best of both worlds, but not necessarily like they want the good and the bad, the yin and the yang. And that is not one, that's not what scripture talks about. So that's one red flag. And another is, I think there is this misconception that when you're involved with someone who is, for lack of a better word, a thug, and that doesn't necessarily delineate that I'm talking about a particular race. So let's clear that up. Okay, thug doesn't mean a race, it means characteristics. Okay, so in saying that, people think that because they are this rough, round. Hey, welcome back. I'll have to merge these two videos. I was starting to tape, and all of a sudden my phone went off and stopped videotaping. That has never happened before. It must be a message that the enemy don't want to get out there. I actually probably need to put my phone on D&D. But anyway, as I was saying, if you're wanting the best of both worlds, so to speak, but in the best of both worlds, you're saying like, yes, I want toxicity and I want someone that's godly or God-fearing. The misconception, what I was saying, is that when people say they want someone who's a thug, and as I mentioned before, that doesn't necessarily mean a particular race, but you want someone who's hard and who's rough and who's really, bout it. That's such an old term. That probably aged me a bit. But anyway, people think that that person can just switch it on and switch it off, and that they can be real rough and exterior in the streets, but let you burn his chicken, or the kids are acting up, or someone got the bills are high. People think that, oh, they're just going to be able to turn that off, they're only going to be angry and irrational in the streets. No, that's a characteristic. They're going to be able to keep that within the home. And so when you have that, when that's something that you're looking for, and then the conversation that I was having with my son, I was stunned, like a bit, like, this poor, hopefully that's not a representation of the generation, although I think it is, even though I think even in my generation as well, there are ladies and even men who think that they want this particular person who's like all rough and, just doesn't have a peace about them, but yet they think in the home they're going to be this different person. That's something that you need to outgrow and that you need to learn from, so that when you are in the world representing yourself, that you do have these positive qualities. It's not something, I guess, that, like I said, people think they can turn on and turn off. There is this mentality about a simp culture, and men, Oh, I don't think people really understand the definition of a word simp, stating that, a guy who's caring and affectionate and who may be a bit predictable, now he's a simp. No, that's actually a good quality. You want someone who's responsible and who is emotionally intelligent. That's something that you do want. That doesn't necessarily mean that person is a simp. Meaning, what I gather from the definition, someone who's a doormat, to me, that's what equated is to a simp. Whether they use it for a guy, but for a woman as well, if you're just being a doormat, if you're just being walked all over, that is not representation of who you want to be. That doesn't mean that because you're expressing this characteristic of being loving and kind and being gentle, now all of a sudden that is equated with weakness. And that is even something that's biblical, because it talks about how Christ was very meek. He was very quiet. He didn't when he could have called angels down to defend him, or even his father, he didn't. They said it was like a lamb being led to the slaughter. He did not open up his mouth. He didn't say anything. And the fact that people want their significant other to be able to be in the world and aggressive, that's just it expresses how I don't know if how damaged the individual is. Because if that's something you're looking for, like, why would you need that? And when I was in a conversation with my son, I was thinking to myself, like, this poor, misguided young lady, because she thinks that she needs someone to fight for her already. Like, why is that? What happened to you that you feel that someone who is practically a stranger, that he would need to fight for you already? Like, who didn't fight for you when you were growing up? Who failed you? Because that speaks to what's going on within yourself, that you're not healed. If off the gate, the least little thing that someone does to you, you want someone to fight and be aggressive. And I'm not saying that there aren't situations when a guy that you're in a relationship with may need to stand up for you. Understand that. I believe that is true. However, you have to learn how to pick your battles. It shouldn't be in and everything. You know what I'm saying? A guy bumps into you accidentally and says, excuse me. Now you want somebody to shoot up his house and his car and, fight for him, go to jail. Like, are you crazy? Like to me, that's what she was asking. Like, my son to be willing to have jail time, to have a criminal record for her. And that's the definition of love. Like, that's so sad. And I can attest to that, because in my previous relationships, like, that's the type of mentality. Like, the guy wanted, like, this ride or die. And for me, like, why am I dying? Like, why is that necessary? Like, Christ already died for everybody, okay? He already paid that price. And I'm not in a position, well, I chose to be not in a position where I need to fight for anyone, unless it's my son. Then you might get it. But other than that, like, no. Like, why would that be the definition of love? To be able to say, like, I want to fight for this person, literally, like, put your hands up and get beat up, because not everybody got hands, okay? So some people get beat up for somebody who don't even really love you. Can you imagine? Some people are getting beat up and cheated on. That is tragic. Like, that is sad. Like, what kind of relationship is that? You done got rocked in the streets and now you done had a baby on you. Like, that's not relationship goals. It's not. But I digress. The point I'm making is that we have to be mindful of what we truly want in a significant other, and why we need those things, why we would need someone to fight for us, literally. Like, why, you haven't come to a place where you are at peace with God, fighting your battles. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to join the OAC Nation and become an overcomer and confident.